Let's take a morning walk through the Pastel Garden, which is really an English style garden. You see here, this part of the garden is all expansion. It wasn't here a year ago. Basically where we put in the Japanese maple to the right, over here to the tree, or over to the wall, is really still kind of in the works. We have planted all of these lilies and tall plants along the wall, but there's a lot to come. Quite a few dahlias are back here as well, but those will be later in the year. This section here is filling in really nicely. I have some latiris. Those are starting to come up. They won't bloom for probably another 2 months or so, and I'll have just these crazy tall gay feathers flying around. This Japanese maple is one of my favorite things we added. My husband really likes acre, so we added this, and these red leaves just look like such a nice contrast. And behind that I have the bubblegum petunias. Those are looking really good. Lots of various salvia. I've got a lantana. I did add some peppers and tomatoes this year in pots. I left them in pots because I wasn't really sure where to plant them, and this way I can move them around depending on how things are going. These pink right here, these are biddens. There's still some Dusty Miller in here. Right here is a hydrangea, and I have a couple hostas. This one here, this one, I actually planted when we got here. It was in the yard in the middle of the grass, so I pulled it up and threw it in the garden. The iris is pretty well past. Lots and lots of foxglove coming in. I planted those last year and the year before. These daisies are making me very, very happy. They were easy. I put them in by seed back in January, and they're doing great. We added the bird bath a couple weeks ago. It's got a fountain, but it's solar powered, and since it's still in shade, it's not doing much right now. This year's still a little bit lean. There's a Campolinata here, all these little ones, so they're already past their bloom time, but some of the other things, the Rebecca, those are starting to come in. I said lots of foxglove. Here's a verbena that's self-sowed from last year. We've got quite a few windflowers, also known as anemone. There are a lot of azaleas here. The previous owner put those in. And then over in this section, this is where the English garden piece really, really kicks in. There's a geranium. That pink bloom is part of the geranium. There's a clematis here. Everything's piling up on top of itself. There's a couple sweet peas on this column. A penta. There's a columbine. These are actually silene that I planted last year, and they never died over the winter. They didn't want to, I guess. Here's a cleon, a dahlia, salvia, and then some more windflower. Those will turn pretty soon. Gotta have some of our pink flowers here. I love these on the edge of the garden because the deer don't bother them. Same reason I have the lantana up front. Look at the size of that foxglove. That's one I planted 2 years ago from seed. And that's behind a hydrangea. There's also quite a few lilies that are starting to think about what they're going to do here. This Gara is amazing. Look at it just blowing there in the wind. It takes the tiniest little breeze and it moves wonderfully. And then there's some more of the carnations in the background. And these hostas are ginormous. Those were also here when we got here. They die down to nothing in the winter, and then they come back and just take over the entire yard in the summer, and that's okay. I love them. These giant blue pots are filled with foxglove and Spanish lavender and some stock. There's also some larkspur starting to do its thing in here. Kind of gets eaten up by the lavender, but it'll be doing its thing soon. There is another hydrangea, some of the mums. Lots of alliums. My pots are here along the walkway. It's a good way for me to keep an eye on them. And then we go over to the other side. There's some tomatoes, same pot. This little goose makes me happy. I was at my mother-in-law's house, and when she moved to assisted living, we took it. And then this little guy is a statue that my husband picked up. He loves these odd little things, and you know what? Anything that makes him happy. Like I said, lots of allium, lots of foxglove. We'll continue. I do have my porch up there. Great place to have my coffee in the morning. See What I love about this garden is that there's so many tall plants that with just a little bit of wind, they really dance for you, and that's enjoyable. Some petunias. This is a honey lily. I think it's also called a Sicilian something, I'm not sure, but it's so unusual and I get so happy every year when it comes up. Lots of azaleas. You can see the ones in the back have kind of past their season. That vine there is a clematis. There's some salvia. And then this section over here, there was another one of these large azalea bushes right here, and I dug it out last fall because it just was eating up the whole garden. And so now I've added some daisies. There's dahlias that'll come in over here. This coneflower I planted 3 years ago and it's doing great. There's a sedum. I am not a fan of sedum, but it's a good filler plant. And there are a few anemones that'll come up in the fall. This area is really a work in progress, but I think you're going to see over the next couple months it'll really come into its own. So when we look from this section, you can see what a big garden this is. Surrounds the porch, and I think it's really starting to hit that cottage garden feel. This is its 3rd season, and yeah, that's our garden. That's the Pastel Garden. I have 2 other beds, but this is the biggest one, and I thought you might enjoy seeing how it's coming along. Thank you for joining me.